Any seasoned Sonic fan knows that the Blue Blurs franchise has had its ups and downs. While his character and main supporting cast have always been beloved by fans, it seems as if sometimes the characters don't really receive that same treatment from their makers, Sega. That's left many a devoted fan in limbo every time a new Sonic game comes out. Will it be good, or will it be a burning pile of garbage? Why can't they make Sonic games the way that they used to? Well, today we're throwing our 2 cents in as we discuss Sonic and his franchise and what they need to do in order to survive, with our list of the top 10 ways to make Sonic great again. And at number 10, too many characters. There are so many characters in the Sonic canon, and that's not even including the cast of characters from the comics. Some of these characters have been criticized to be rip-offs of previous popular Sonic characters, and no, I'm not just specifically talking about Shadow here. Although some fans didn't really like the character at first, he did eventually pan out to be a good foil to Sonic. But then came along Silver, the time-traveling hedgehog, that essentially just looked like a white and silver version of Shadow. The Sonic games have a graveyard of characters we don't really see around much anymore, and ones that feel redundant these days that we do see. They don't really do much for forwarding the plot, and when they do make appearances, here's looking at you, Big the Cat and Storm the Albatross, it's not even great. And don't even get me started on the human characters. Ugh. Up next, number 9, Stop Being Dark. The early days of Sonic saw the Hedgehog in family-friendly, lighthearted adventures that followed fairly straightforward narratives. But as the games ventured into the realm of 3D, the stories became more convoluted and began to change in tone. The first real apparent introduction to this grittier tone was the introduction of Shadow. Sega wanted to explore the dynamic of good and evil and introduced a rival for Sonic that initially acted as an antagonist. Neat idea. But then the character caught on with fans, and Sega decided to make the most of that by giving Shadow his own game, rather than sticking to the original plan of killing off the character. This eventually led us to Shadow's solo game, which was filled with darker storylines, grittier aesthetics, and Shadow trying way too hard to be cool. Or rather, edgy. Sega gave the game some uncharacteristic components, like Shadow wielding guns. This tonal shift has only escalated since, and is still apparent in most Sonic 3D games, including Sonic Forces, leaving us to deal with a whole lot of groan-worthy dialogue and plot points that feel unnecessary, especially coming out of the mouths of these anthropomorphic characters who were once 90s lovable creatures. Up next, number 8, weird plot devices. Speaking of cringe-worthy plot devices, there's a whole lot of those in the post-Genesis Sonic games. Werehog, anyone? Yeah. While some hardcore fans may disagree and enjoy the plots of the games, a lot of others play the games for the action as opposed to the stories these days. Remember Sonic 06? That was a low point there. While Sonic Forces isn't nearly as bad as that, one of the biggest issues critics had with it was its poor writing, from the narrative itself to the dialogue. For an iconic character as big as Sonic, you'd think his developers would be a little bit more invested in giving him a quality story that wasn't half-assed. Up next, number 7, embrace the memes. Another major issue that Sonic & Co. have suffered from is how the internet has embraced its franchise, and made fun of it lots. While some may see this as negative, and to be fair, there's a lot online that doesn't really do much for his image, the humor for the most part is actually pretty enjoyable, and if approached correctly, could be spun into a good marketable direction for the character. This is something that Sega, or at least their social media team, has begun to take notice of. Recently, the official Sonic Twitter account has been all about embracing the memes, even using them randomly at times, and it's getting a much more positive response compared to the way that their Twitter was previously received. Up next, number 6, stop listening to the fans. In contrast to that, Sega needs to learn when and when not to listen to the fans. Embrace the memes, maybe not the DeviantArt. Just because everyone is crafting their own super edgy character doesn't mean Sega needs to take inspiration from that. While the Avatar mode in Sonic Forces was a nice touch, and arguably derivative of the fanbase's desire to create their own Sonic characters, some of the skins and accessory options were a little cringeworthy. In addition to that, and our number 10 point, some of the more recent cast of characters have suffered from these edgy traits, and so have the plot lines. Just because a bunch of brooding teens are into that, it doesn't mean that it needs to be incorporated into the game. Up next, number 5, Overspeeding. Moving on to a more technical number, one major gameplay mechanic that Sega needs to dial back on is the overspeeding. Focus on the platforming, not the high speeds. Yes, the whole Sonic gimmick is that he goes fast, but what's the point of having a character that can reach super fast speeds if the actual world, aka the game levels, are developed really poorly and aren't made to properly cooperate with the mechanic? It seems counterproductive. Players want a game that has the whole package. They don't want something that has one awesome attribute but fails to deliver in other areas, or even fails to facilitate the attributes they do love. And at number 4, Too many genres. Sonic already goes fast. Why does he need a racing game? Especially if it's been stated numerous times that he's the fastest of the franchise. Why does he need a car to race in? Or extreme gear? Dumb. Why does he need to go golfing or fishing? Why do we need to go fishing with Big the Cat? I feel like I'm asking existential questions here. Usually when these games are poorly developed too, it feels more like a money-making gimmick than a contribution to the franchise. Up next, number 3, simplicity. Let's take a moment to look at the difference between the early Sega Genesis games, I'm talking 1991's Sonic the Hedgehog, 1992's Sonic the Hedgehog 2, and 1994's Sonic the Hedgehog 3 and Knuckles, and even look at the likes of other games like Sonic Mania. What made these games work so well? Simplicity, on all fronts. No convoluted stories. Straightforward and effective gameplay mechanics. It worked before, why try to fix it or add to it or ruin it? There's places you can go in that, you don't, have to just add on more crap. And at number 2, make quality games. This number is pretty much a summation of this entire list, and more. The more recent Sonic games have been highly criticized by critics and fans alike for its poor gameplay mechanics, unresponsive or difficult controls, terrible level design, and a plethora of glitches. What's worse is that this is consistently the status quo for a Sonic game, with the exception of Mania, but we'll be touching on that in a sec. It almost feels as if Sega rushes to get these games out without much consideration for how they'll be letting down a devoted fan base, or if the game will have any sort of longevity, which most of them don't. Aside from Sonic 06 being relevant still because it's laughable. It's not what you want, Sega. And last but definitely not least, and at number 1, have games developed outside of Sega. If all this is too much for Sega to handle, which it kinda seems like it is, there's another solution that comes to mind that only half excludes them from the picture. Have other devoted developers outside of Sega make Sonic games, while Sega just acts as a publisher. Now, while there may be a lot of flaws to that train of thought, consider the following. Sonic Mania, which was amazing, was developed by an Australian programmer named Christian Whitehead. He was a prominent member of the Sonic fan game community, and was working with Sega to develop remastered ports of Sonic the Hedgehog, Sonic 2, and Sonic CD for mobile phones. He then took it upon himself to use that opportunity to present Takahashi Iizuka with a prototype of a game that he called Sonic Discovery, which kind of felt like a remix version of the original games, but also picked up after Sonic 3. It was developed using Whitehead's own retro engine. Now let's take a look at the recent success of Sonic Mania versus that of Sonic Forces, a game developed by Sonic Team at Sega. Yeah. The game felt like a major failure to most critics coming off the success that Mania had had. Perhaps there's a very good lesson to be learned there, Sega. And there we have it, friends. Which of these do you agree with? What do you disagree with? Let us know all those thoughts and feels in the comments below. Now if you dug this video, please show us some love by hitting those like and subscribe buttons. We've also got a ton of other Sonic videos and other gaming videos just waiting for you to check out on our channel. So please click the playlist that's currently flashing on your screen right now to see more. In the meantime, thanks for watching everyone. Catch you all in the next video.